Good morning. It's Friday, July 25th. I'm Phil Streible, Chief Market Strategist at Blue Line Futures. So some housekeeping here. If you aren't receiving the chart pack, chances are your trial period had ended. You'll want to reach out to your sales associate or send an email to info@bluelinefutures.com. Now, starting off with the precious metals here, we do have gold down about $30 at $33.44. It's really been a snapback here in 10-year treasury yields and also the dollar index, boosting back up just a bit here, and also some trade deals getting done. You've got record highs in U.S. equities, so it's going to take some of that safe haven demand off. Now shifting to the silver market, down about 27 cents here and dropping below the $39 mark. It's been a busy morning here with a lot of traders positioning in different commodities and also some of the cryptocurrencies, especially with gold and silver coming down, and then also Bitcoin down about 2% here on the July contract, trading about 116,500. The August contract's what you want to focus on as we are up for expiration on the July contract. Now looking at the silver market, the ETFs continue to add huge amounts of troy ounces here, adding about 2.23 million troy ounces of silver holdings in the previous trading session. So it's the fourth straight day of growth and massive growth. So people are really coming into the silver market here, and it's the longest winning streak since June 13th. Now, oftentimes what I'll do is when things start to move in one direction, excuse me, I'll often look at where prices are at and where prices have been going. We have had a couple days slide here after breaking back out to the upside and re-accelerating here to the upside. But I'm also seeing some stories and some headlines here that are talking about mine production rising about 3% in 2025, and then also talking about some of the recycled production that's coming out. Some of the discussions are that we're seeing about 189 million ounces of silver could come from recycled production in 2025. And we've seen other peaks in the recycled production here. Back in 2011, we saw a massive move up in recycled silver here because of the fact that prices had accelerated in 2011 by about 75% here. So also recycling from silver coming from solar really is becoming more viable here as some of the old solar projects start to fall off, as the new technology takes over. It's just like a car. You buy the new car, it's the greatest thing, and then over the years go by here, they come out with better cars, and you'll want to recycle some of those old things, and that's where they're starting to take silver from. And if you look at some of the solar products that are out there, they're using actually less and less amounts of silver in there because of the fact that the technology is getting a lot better here. Now, not to be just so bearish on silver with some of these headlines, these are just things that I like to read out there for enjoyment purposes. I like to see what is driving both sides of the commodity markets and really hold an unbiased approach, because when you trade futures, it's just as easy to go long as it is to go short. You could also buy calls, you could also buy puts. So not bearish on the silver at all, just watching and anticipating what moves could happen farther down the road here. So if you look at some things that silver, yes, I believe that prices are going to continue to go up, and I believe that once we break through that $40 mark here, and it's not a matter of are we going to break through it, it's a matter of when are we going to break through it. I think we'll move on up to the next congestion zone, which is that $42 to $44 mark. So looking from a strategy standpoint, we have been looking at Bitcoin all morning. I've had multiple discussions with clients, and this is before 4 o'clock in the morning, on Bitcoin, on silver, on October silver call spreads, on November silver call spreads, and finally the December, and then also reassessing the gold market here with it coming down. Where are the critical levels of support, and where would an attractive entry point come in to the gold market? So these are some of the discussions that I've had early on here. So looking across the board and looking at the U.S. equity markets, we've got European trading stocks fell on some disappointing earning. Also, we have Asian stocks falling after ending a 6-day rally. Now, if you look at copper and you look at silver, Asian stocks in China have really taken off to the upside. Their economy has done quite well. Their stock market has done quite well. The reflation that's going on and the growth that's going on over in China has really helped the copper market, helped the silver market here. And that's why I tell you that it's very important to look at the industrial side of things, to look at mining output, yes, look at recycling output, look at the industrial demand, look at the price of the dollar index, look at the price of the 10-year note, because it's never just one thing when it comes to commodities. That's why I don't use moving average. They're very static. They look at historical data, and that's it. I look at everything here because it's not one thing, it's everything, and the markets are global in nature. And as more and more technology allows people to trade these different products and more derivatives come involved, there's a lot more components that are going to move the price of these commodities. That's why it's oftentimes very important to be aware of all your surroundings and things that are going on. Now you look at the S&P 500 notching out its 10th record close here in the last 19 trading days. So we're starting to really push higher here and consolidate sideways. We've seen that the market, what did it do? It traded up to about that 6,400 level. Now we're consolidating. Now we're breaking back out to the upside. Look at the lower right around that 63.80, 90 is your critical level of support, and look for any kind of movement upwards through today's high for the potential for another run up to 64.50, which would be a new all-time high. So right now, the markets, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, they are both trading sideways here, and the S&P is just kind of hanging out again near those all-time highs. So it's going to be a bit quieter here with the trading today. Not much going on with earnings. We'll only have durable goods really come out, but it seems like traders are really starting to focus on next week here, which is going to be a busier one with the Fed meeting and a whole lot of earnings announcements. So we're going to have our busiest stretch of earnings here with about 38% of the S&P 500 set to report here next week. And it's been mostly good news when it comes out to the companies here. We've seen 83% of the companies of the 163% or 163 companies that have reported, 83% of them have shown that they've beaten the expectations here when it comes to earnings. So if you look at 10-year treasury yields, just slightly higher, dollar index just slightly higher. You got the volatility index still just hanging out here, the August contract at 18, the September contract just below that 20 mark here, not much going on in that department. Crude oil futures slightly higher after a big boost up yesterday. We'll want to reassess that. We're also looking at natural gas, which is starting to bounce off some support. We do have the sugar market shot back up, and where you go from a pennant pattern, which is like a triangle that was moving up, now you break down, and when you break below the low of the pennant, what happens is the pennant turns into a flag, and you want to monitor that as kind of your last line of support. So when it comes to technical analysis, those are some of the particular chart patterns that I look for because of the fact you get breakouts to the upside, and you also get definable levels of support and resistance. You look at the crude oil market again, just slightly higher. You look at gold futures down about $30, 33.44 last, low of the session 33.42, high of the session 33.76. So we kind of opened up, and then they pulled the rug out from the downside here. We got Bitcoin futures down about 2%. You got Ethereum futures just slightly lower. A lot of interest in Ethereum, Ripple, Solana. Phone ringing off the hook with people that want to trade those particular products there. Seen some interesting developments in the agricultural market, specifically the corn market. And then finally, you look at the exchange traded funds. Well, they did add a little bit more on the gold side here, but it's really the year-to-date percentage change. Stellar moves here, up 10% in gold, up 10% in silver. Silver, this is one of the highest levels that I've seen when it comes to exchange traded funds. And finally, the gold-silver ratio at 85-1. So again, going to be a really busy morning. I'll be on the Schwab network here a little bit later on today, right around that 2:40 p.m. Central Time. You guys got any questions, shoot an email, info@bluelinefutures.com. Remember, futures and option trading does involve risk of loss. May not be suitable to all investors. Good luck, good trading.